This is Russ with Devoted Golfer TV and Fit2Score, and I'm here with Ridge Meracle.
How's it going?
And Ridge Meracle is Mizuno, Texas, and Oklahoma.
Yes, sir. Got North Texas, West Texas, and the entire state of Oklahoma. So we got a lot of driving to do.
Yeah, keeps you on the road a bit, huh?
Oh, absolutely. But we have fun. I got great guys coming out here and great accounts and golf course I get to see every day. Yes.
How did it get renamed from the MPs to the Mizuno Pro?
You know, that's a great question. MP stood for many years Mizuno Pro. If you played some of the older model Mizuno Pros in the past, you saw that the script Mizuno Pro was put on there. And we thought this was a great opportunity for us to really appreciate the history that we've done, but also rewrite history and recreate history. A lot of people were kind of confused at first on why we would go and rebrand Mizuno Pro. And I think that's the beauty of it. I think a lot of people had certain expectations for what an MP was going to have. And for us, reintroducing Mizuno Pro gives us an opportunity to rewrite history.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we've done in the past is, it's the past. This is time for us to take what we've learned over the last few decades and bring them in and bring them to the player who's looking for more consistency, more feel, and more customization in their bag.
Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I've just started fitting with these, and I just happened to pick up the 225, which is one of my favorites.
Yes.
But let's go through the whole line here.
Of course.
Okay, so we're going to start with the 221. What's different here from 2 years ago?
You know, when it comes to a blade, there's not much that we want to change. You know, the lack of technology is the technology in a blade. But there are certain things that we can do to improve on them and also to build off of what we've done in the past. First thing you're going to notice is that we have the grain flow forged HD, so it's a high density mild carbon steel billet that we're using, really just to give us that soft feel that everyone knows and loves from Mizuno.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest takeaway from what we did the previous line is, if you notice in the heel and toe, we took a little bit of mass out of there and put it directly behind the club face. I got one right here for you.
Okay.
So if you look right here, we took a little bit of mass out of the heel and toe. What that gave us the ability to do is put that directly behind the club face, just to soften up that feel a little bit. And then another thing that we did is we've shortened the blade length significantly in the scoring iron, so you're actually going to see a more shorter blade length.
Yeah.
But even though the blade length is shortened, our CG distances have shortened as well. And I think anybody who's looking for a blade and they were being told that we made a more tighter small package, but at the same time gave them more consistency in their trajectories, their launch angles, their descent angles, is something that a lot of the guys in a blade are going to be looking for.
Yeah.
They're not looking for us to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, and you know, I'm not sold on very big heads. You know, you mentioned center of gravity, and you know, and I'm looking at axis of rotation, which is the hosel,
Absolutely.
and placement of the center of gravity.
Of course.
And if the center of gravity is too far away from the axis of rotation, I got those backwards, center of gravity, axis of rotation. If the center of gravity is too far away from the axis of rotation, it's just harder for a lot of golfers to get this thing around.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of the things that we really have worked on, is just trying to get not only the center of gravity more in the center, but get that sweet spot in the center as well, so that we can actually get the exact loft and shock trajectories that we're looking for. You know, anybody playing an iron that's Mizuno Pro or even a blade, they're trying, when it goes 175 for that particular club, they want it to land 175.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want there to be any variable that can prevent them from doing that, because a guy playing this iron 1 yard or 2 yards is a big difference for them in a landing zone.
Oh yeah.
So for us, when it comes to the Mizuno Pro 221, it's really just making things as consistent as possible for that golfer who's going to be playing the more blade style iron.
And I happen to pick up the copper underlay head, which is the next issue here. On, you know, I have a friend that is still playing his 1987 blades that had copper underlay on them. When did the copper underlays go away? Was it 89 or, you know, I mean, it's been a while. You probably don't even know that number. You weren't born yet, right?
I was not born yet. It's funny because the TN87s are probably the irons that your friend is playing.
Yep.
Was one of the only irons that was a copper underlay. And what was interesting was it was only on the Japanese models.
Oh,
The
really?
TN87, if you remember back in those days, was the MP29 here in America. And back in those days, Japan was adding that copper underlay, not to soften the feel, it was to make sure that chrome plating stuck on that face a little bit better.
Oh, really?
That was a big problem back in the day with forgings. You couldn't get that chrome to stick on the face as long.
Okay.
So adding that copper indirectly added a softer feel. And when we started testing it 2 years ago with the MP20s, we realized that this was something that we couldn't put our finger on why it made it softer. But when we did a blind test, it was a unanimous feel of softer when you added that copper underlay. So we knew that that was something that was going to have to be progressed into the new Mizuno Pro line, and what you're also going to see in the wedges later on in the video.
Okay, so the copper underlay is still there. Narrow cambered sole.
Absolutely. So
that is narrow.
It's very narrow. You know, for a lot of these guys, they're wanting to get something that's going to cut through that turf.
Yeah.
They're not going to be worried about taking too much of a divot because they're very consistent with what they're doing. They're trying to cut through that turf, really get that ball to bite a little bit more and create a little bit more spin. So we do what's called a cambered sole, or from back in the day, you want to call it a Bermuda grind. So a lot of the guys on tour called it in the late 80s, early 90s.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Going back to that sole there, just to give us a little.
And so here in Texas, you know, it's all Bermuda.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's going to really help out here in Texas. And that's one of the things that we talk about with everybody. Turf interaction plays such an important part of the golf game and in the swing in general. And when you look at this entire line, there's things that we've done to make sure that the turf interaction is just right for whatever model that you choose.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so satin and mirror finish.
When you put that satin on the face, it gives you a good, what's the word I'm looking for? Contrast. There's the word I'm looking for. So contrast between the scoring lines of the club itself and the total body gives you the ability to line the club up a little bit better and see where it's supposed to be in the center of the face a little bit better when you're looking down at a dress.
So they're all chromed, but the only difference is that the face is going to be satin.
Absolutely. Just again, just to square that ball up at impact or at a dress a little bit better for you.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on to the next model, the
Let's do it.
Mizuno Pro 223.
You got it. Let's do it.
Okay. So there we go, and we've got. Tell me about the placement of this weight in here.
Yeah, you know, this is the first club that we really start to see technology that we've brought over from the past few years into the Mizuno Pro line. You know, when we talk about players' distance irons, that's one of the fastest growing categories in golf. But we're leaving out a huge category when it comes to a player's distance iron, and it's the tour player. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of guys out there who like to see a more compact, smaller look at a dress, and that's where this club is going to come into play because it's going to have all the technologies that we're used to in a more compact style iron. So one of the things you'll notice about this club, especially when we go through the slides, you'll see it, is that when you get to the 4 through 7, they're going to be in their way their own combo set. So they're going to be grain flow forged HD, just like everything we've always done. But when you get to the 4 through 7 iron, they're going to be our chromoly metal. What chromoly is, if you know about the JPX line, that's a metal that we've used in our Hot Metals, Hot Metal Pros. We also used it in our Mizuno HMVs last year. It's been a metal that we've had a lot of success with over the past few years, and it's really going to bring an introduction of that into our more compact players line. So
this isn't a hollow head, is it?
It is and it isn't. So it's not your traditional hollow, what you would assume it being, where you put two pieces together. So what we do is, this is still forged the same exact way that we would forge a mild carbon steel or a 221. But what we do after that is we add what's called a micro slot into the sole of this club. And when you go through the sole of the club, it's actually parallel to the club face to increase core area.
Oh, okay.
So one of the things that I think all
But I can't see the slot there because you weld over.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We don't want anything getting in there, people seeing what it is. But what's really cool about these are their own specific slots at each specific club head. So when you get to the 4 iron, for example, it's going to have a little bit wider slot than the 7 iron will because we're trying to promote a higher launch and a little bit more ball speed. When you get to the 5 and 6, we're going to call it, it's called a TH-shaped slot. So it's going to be a straight slot here, but there's a little bit more taken out in the middle here.
Oh, really?
And what we're trying to do there is just trying to get the trajectory more exact for what we want those clubs to do. We're not trying to get it to go as high as that 4 iron, but we're also still trying to get a good amount of height and a little more ball speed to it.
Right.
And then when you get to the 7 iron, you're going to have a little bit thinner, more narrow slot so that we can progress into the scoring irons, which are going to be that mild carbon steel 1025 that everyone knows Mizuno for. So that's
then when you get to the 9 iron?
9 irons are going to have no slot at all.
No slot.
No slots. So any of the 8 through pitching wedge, or actually 8 through gap in this set. So for the first time ever, Mizuno Pro 223 and 225 will be carrying gap wedges. It's a new thing that we've been adding. Those will not have the slots in them. They're going to be pure mild carbon steel forging, just like you're used to seeing from Mizuno.
Yeah. One of the things I've always liked on Mizuno heads is that beveled back edge.
Oh, yes.
So you decrease turf resistance on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's one of the biggest things that we talk about. You know, we talked about this constantly. Turf interaction, especially from, you know, Georgia to Texas to Florida, wherever you are in the country, it really is something that we have to look at as fitters. And for the fact that we take a little bit and bevel off that edge so that we get minimal turf interaction to what it would be at that size, really does help the golfer get that ball up in the air and get a little bit more of a clean strike.
Yeah, you're calling it turf interaction. I might call it turf drag.
Turf drag, yes.
Right? You come in with a sweeping swing and the width of that sole is going to take speed off the club head just before you hit the ball.
Absolutely, especially on the rough.
Yeah.
Anytime you get a little bit shaggier grass and you're getting even more grass between the turf and that club, you're going to have a lot more turf drag. So that's something that we're always thinking about and making sure we're finding ways to minimize that as much as possible.
So we've got a player's design with slants in the bottom to make the bottom of the face a little hotter
Absolutely.
and the sweet spot on the head a little larger.
Yes, and again, it's also trying to make sure that we're getting the similar ball speed on a miss hit. Now, we're not getting exactly that ball speed, but the closer that we can get on a miss hit to getting that ball speed, the similar as a center strike, that's the end game for all of us manufacturers. How can we make sure to keep these clubs as consistent as possible throughout any kind of strike?
And that leads into the next slide. 225s. I can tell you, I don't even have them yet. I mean, I've got the fitters.
Yeah.
I already sold 2 sets of them.
Oh, I mean,
I've been waiting for this from Mizuno for a long time.
They have.
Yeah.
They have. And you know, we brought the first model out 2 years ago with the MP20 HMB. And what was really interesting about that set is that the fact, you know how this is, if you start building any set of clubs or designing them, you start on the pitching wedge and work your way back.
Mm-hmm.
Because the scoring irons are the most important part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But when we designed the HMBs last year, we started the 2-iron and worked our way down.
Mm-hmm.
It was very unconventional for us to do that,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day it worked. We had multiple My Golf Spy awards with the HMB irons. They became one of the best-selling irons in the Mizuno market, and it really gave us a grasp of the player's distance and hollow body market. And with the 225, it was just refining and even making the HMBs even better.
Yeah. So we've got chrome alloy.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So it's going to be a very similar design to what we did in the MP20 HMB. So you're going to have a chromoly neck and face.
Okay.
So I know a lot of people get nervous when they hear chromoly forging, but it's still grain flow forging.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you can make sure that that grain structure stays intact from hosel to toe,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to get that same great Mizuno feel that you're used to.
And I can bend them whenever I feel like it.
And they're malleable as much as you need them to be
Yeah.
malleable. And that's something that I know as a fitter, that's a huge thing to be able just to adjust lofts. Even in the middle of having that set and your swing changes, you can actually adjust those according to what your swing's going to be.
And I can find, for the players that are good enough to do this, I can gap their set.
Yes. And here's what's really
Precisely gap their set.
And what's even cooler about the Mizuno Pro line is the fact that even though when you want to line those lofts up,
Mm-hmm.
even though all three of these clubs have different lofts, the offsets will line up as well. So one of the things Mizuno we know is when people
What did you just say? So the 221, the 220, 223,
Yeah.
and the 225 are all going to have the same offsets
they're going to have,
through the set.
it's going to be a progressive offset. So what we do is, so if, let's say hypothetically you wanted to mix and match the 221 and 223s.
Mm-hmm.
The 7-iron in this one's at 34, the 7-iron in this one's 32.
Mm-hmm.
So it's essentially 2 degrees stronger.
Mm-hmm.
But if we made these lofts line up
Mm-hmm.
to where they're all equal at 4 degrees gapping,
Mm-hmm.
the offsets line up as well.
Oh, I see.
So we have a progressive offset system in all of these clubs to where you're not going to look down at something a little bit funkier because we adjusted the loft.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So just a little subtle things Mizuno does just to really make it to where we can customize the set just for you.
Copper underlays.
Copper
Yeah,
underlay
yeah.
always.
So tell me about multi-thickness face.
Yeah, again, we talked about this previously. Core area is the new name. That is what we're looking for. 5-6 years ago, everyone was talking about COR,
Mm-hmm.
which that's how much ball speed you get with center strike.
Yeah. Yeah.
Core area is talking about the entire face. So again, we've been talking about over the last few years is we're trying to find ways to maintain that ball speed on a miss hit. And with the HMB, with that multi-thickness Core-Tech face, we're able to put weight in certain areas where we can make that face more consistent throughout the entire club. That's what the name of the game is for Mizuno Pro. It's trying to find more consistency in your swing. The guys who play this iron, they're not necessarily looking to hit the ball 10 yards farther, 15 yards farther. They're looking to find something, if their 7-iron goes 150, they want it to land at 150. And that's the most important thing to these guys. So we're really trying to find ways to make these more forgiving at address, but at the same time be something that you can trust and rely on to hit the distance that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Didn't you tell me you had somebody that you were fitting with these that was a scratch golfer?
No, he was a 3.
Still impressive.
Yeah, not bad. But, you know, he's got kids. And, you know, I always ask this question, you know, you have kids, how often do you play? And how often do you practice?
Not enough.
You know, so you would take a 3 and you'd be looking at a blade, and we were actually testing the blade. And when I got to I get to play once or twice a month, and I might practice once or twice a year. I'm like, you know, you're going to be much happier with something with a little more forgiveness in it, because you're not practicing enough to center strike all day long.
No, and you know, I think that's something that we always run into as fitters. I'm just as guilty of it. You know, in college, I practice all the time, so I had all the time in the world, but as things come into today, I don't have time to practice as much as I will, and I'm just as guilty of it. I'm probably playing an iron that probably is out of my handicap. But at the same time, for us to make something like the 225 that has that compact look, that compact feel, that looks pretty much like a blade in your bag,
Right.
but gives you that wiggle room and that forgiveness to maybe you are having a day that's just a little off, or you know, the family was more important than your game, and you had to go be more of a dad or a mom or a good family member versus getting your game to where it needs to be. So for us to be able to make something that has that look, has that feel, but has that forgiveness built in, it's going to be a game changer for a lot of people.
So there's a couple other items here for us to talk about, but I think that we cover them in a blow-up in the next
Yes,
slide,
we do.
don't we? Yeah, so
Absolutely.
Let's just go there.
Yeah, let's talk about this a little bit. Just kind of like the 223, the 225 in its own way, it's its own combo set. So when you get to those 2 and 8 irons, if you look, we still have that grain flow forged neck and face here, and this is how we make the hollow body construction. We laser weld the back piece onto the club head here. What that does is it keeps the integral structure of that that forging, so that we get that soft Mizuno feel, but because it's the hollow body construction, we get that trampoline effect to give us a little bit more ball speed. Do you see?
And so you've got a little weight, that weight going in the top side or bottom side?
It's going to go in that bottom side. We're going to try to get that as deep of a CG as possible. So one of the things about this club is it's got a 31-degree loft on the 7-iron. One of the biggest things about that is, even though it's stronger lofted, we want to get that ball in the air.
Yes.
Just because a club is stronger does not mean it's going to go farther. It all has, it's a balance of height, spin rate, distance. So for us to get something that's going to be a little stronger, that gets a little higher, it's going to be really beneficial for us. And what we did was, in the HMB, we actually had 2 weights spread out. We put that weight directly behind the club face in the center of impact to soften that feel up a little bit more.
Yeah. So, what do we have here? Okay, so here is the 9-iron and gap wedge.
Yeah, then we go
9 pitching and gap.
9 pitching gaps. So this is where you start to see us going to that mild carbon steel 1025. And it's not anything to do with more distance or so on and so forth. We believe that once you get to those scoring irons, consistency is the most important part. We talk about this constantly of the golden 100. Shots are earned and gained when you get to 100 yards and then. And we need to know exactly what that distance is going to be. And we do believe when we get to these back into our scoring irons, going back to that mild carbon steel where we don't need as much ball speed, is really going to be beneficial to the golfer.
Right, yeah. You need to give him something that gets up in the air, spins, and stops where it lands.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're playing darts out here in golf. We're not playing croquet. I don't want to see the ball roll across the green.
Yeah, especially at that end of the bag.
No. And that's one of the reasons why we have so many shaft options nowadays. You know, it's not just club head that's going to bring us to that point. With us,
Let's roll in a fitting card.
Let's do it.
And explain that to people.
Yeah, I got one. Let's do it.
Okay. So here is the Mizuno fitting card. And before I get you to explain it,
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you what I love about it. What I love about it is the array of shafts that you have. How many shafts?
Oh gosh, it changes all the time. I think we're up to 62 now.
Okay. So what we have is different weights, different stiffnesses, and different profiles.
Yes.
So you've got it all covered. There is not another brand in the business with this kind of dedication to fitting where you have all of these shafts available in not only different designs and weights and stiffnesses, but also in different lengths.
Yeah, absolutely. Mizuno, we're a big believer in, let's be honest, golf is hard. We're
Yeah.
trying to make it as easy as possible for people. And there's certain shafts that work great for people, and there's certain shafts that just don't work as well for people as they would like it to. And just giving someone a stock option doesn't always fit the majority of people. So, Mizuno, we've had a very long tradition of having a lot of shaft offerings to make sure that we can get your set dialed into you.
Yeah.
Whether it be a mix and matching a combo set in the Mizuno Pros,
Right.
throughout the JPX line, or even going into adding some of a different shaft in there that maybe not be a stock offering for most people.
Yep. When I look at a fitting cart that's got 12 shafts in it, and I look at a particular person's strength, I'm seeing, okay, I got 3 shafts to work with.
Yeah.
Because, he's so strong that I've got to get into the 120, 130 gram shafts. How many of those have I got? Oh, 2, 3. How do you?
Yeah,
It doesn't work for me.
It doesn't. It
This
doesn't.
does.
And I was somebody who, when I was growing up as well, I was a baseball player. I could swing at it pretty hard, and it was really hard for me growing up to find a shaft that kept up with me because in those days, I had to buy stock, and pretty much everything had a Uniflex shaft in it, and those just don't work for somebody. A 90-gram regular doesn't work for someone swinging the club 105 miles an hour with a 6-iron.
Yeah.
So
105 with a 6.
I was moving it.
Yeah. You still have that?
Heck no. Heck no. I had a few injuries from other things that honestly was probably the best thing could have happened in my golf game. So for me, if I can keep it under about 97, 98, that's my 7-iron club head speed now. A little bit more controllable, I would say.
Yeah.
But it was always hard for me to find shafts. And, when I transitioned to start fitting more at Mizuno, I noticed that they had those 130-gram really stiff shafts in there that I needed so I could actually feel the club at impact. That was my biggest feel. I could never feel the club from here to here. So for me getting in some of these heavier shafts, I'm actually able to feel the impact as soon as we get to there, or I can feel my entire swing. And the bonus part of that is I don't have to pay extra because that shaft doesn't fit me. I can go to one of the 62 in here to
Yeah.
get me really dialed in.
Yeah. You talk about feel, and to me, I'm watching for a weight that helps a person release completely. And if the club is too light, I see a multi-part release. There's this, and then they're chasing it with their hands because the weight of the club didn't cause that to happen.
Yeah.
And, when you get too heavy, of course, they're out of control close to impact because you've got the speed and the mass of the head, and their hands are out of control. So there's a fine balance in there.
There is.
Plus, it's what the player feels.
I was just about to say we're missing the most important part, which is feel. And, golf's one of the few times in any sport you can say, I don't like the feel of this. And that's a fair answer, and we're going to have to find a way around it because golf is so mental. If there's anything preventing you from thinking that this is the club that's going to get you to where you need to go, we need to find a solution because there can't be any kind of mental hesitancy when we're talking about a golf club and the difference in birdie and par or making the cut and missing the cut.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that whatever's in your hands is the most confident you can be.
And, when you get into this feel issue, if it's too soft, you're going to get dispersion. Right?
Way dispersed.
If it's too stiff, the golfer feels like he's got to swing harder to load it. But, there's this spot where the synergy between the feel and the swing happens, and that person knows that he can comfortably swing that club and that it will square off at impact. And, there's that feel of load. And if you get that wrong, you don't have what I call a synergistic swing.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's something that we really take into effect. The shaft optimizer, for example, that's a part of the Mizuno Fit cart, measures the shaft flexion at multiple parts of the swing for that exact reason. We're trying to find the right spots where the shaft loads, how much is it loading at the top of your swing versus the halfway down your swing. We're trying to find those ways so that we can actually take this cart of 62 shafts
Yeah.
and narrow it down to 2 to 3 so that we can actually start looking at shafts that make sense of why they'll fit, but we also need the person who's hitting them to start to dial in what they're looking for from a feel perspective, because brands have different feels, and that's something where we need to dial in to see what feels best for you. I'm a big believer in feel when it comes to golf. I'm a feel guy.
Yeah, yeah. And so, my specialty, of course, is the eye profiles.
Yep.
And a lot of this optimizer system is built upon Mizuno's understanding of EI profiles.
Yes, absolutely. And I love the fact that the software shows the EI profile, because the EI profile tells the story of the shaft. And when I'm talking to somebody, for example, who needs maybe to bring their ball flight down, I can visually show them with the EI chart, this shaft is stiffer in the tip. Normally that's going to bring our ball flight down. So there's our starting point. So it's a great way, the shaft optimizer, to give us the starting point to the fitting. Because if we sat there hitting all 62 of these shafts, we'd be there all day.
Right.
I need to find ways that we can, one, get this more efficiently for both of us, but two, I want to make sure that you're having the best fitting experience possible as a consumer. And the Mizuno Shaft Optimizer has really done that for us.
Yeah. And there's a great range of shafts in here.
Yes, there is.
And I understand a lot of these EI profiles. I mean, we get to some of them that go a little soft in the butt. You have some people that hate it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you have other people that just love it.
Exactly.
This feels great to me.
And that's why,
So-
we do really stress fitting to people, because your opinion and my opinion are probably different on a lot of things that we're looking for in a club. But that doesn't mean either of us are wrong. It's just what we're looking for that's a little different and that's more available for our swing.
Yeah.
And I think that us having the ability to combo in that way and to be able to give you the right combination really is going to make you be more confident in your golf game, and you're going to steal a couple more of your buddy's bucks on the 18th green.
Yeah, yeah. As you started that sentence, I had another thought run through my head. Your opinion and my opinion, they don't matter.
No.
What matters is that
Exactly.
golfer's opinion.
Absolutely.
What does he feel?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that me personally, that's how I fit. The shaft optimizer is great because it really does narrow that down, and I can throw numbers at them saying, this shaft's doing this shaft's doing that. But unless they have the confidence in themselves, my opinion doesn't mean anything. The numbers don't mean anything.
Right.
It all comes down to what you're feeling and what your preference are. These are your sticks.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we got to make sure that they're the sticks you want and they perform the way you want them to.
Yeah, and it doesn't always happen on the day of the fitting. You have to fit them in such a way that they can develop their swing based upon the club that you put in their hands, because what are they with you, an hour or two?
Yeah.
I mean, their swing isn't going to change in an hour or two, but as they develop a relationship with those clubs, then their game is going to get better.
Absolutely.
You have to be looking for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I always talk to people about long-term or short-term, what we fitting towards.
Yeah.
Are
that's
we?
the question, yeah.
It
Am I
is.
fitting this swing, or am I fitting the swing that you're about to develop?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a huge question. And that's especially to your viewers. If you are getting lessons or getting any kind of instruction, let the fitter know so that they know how they can work with you, because there's nothing worse as a fitter to fit somebody to something and then they come back and say, well, my swing's changed. I don't want that. I want to make sure that we're fitting you to something that you can use long term.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the wedges. We're going to have
Let's
to
do
get
it.
this out of here, so we're going to take a little break.
So, Rich, we've got the card out of here now, and I thought we were going to go on to wedges, but I forgot something. I forgot the FliHi.
FliHi's back.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't believe we forgot about FliHi. This has been a club that was really designed from a lot of feedback from the tour guys. People always talk about the word driving iron and what they're looking for in a driving iron. Fact of the matter is, driving irons are really one-dimensional. They're great off the tee, but we only have 14 clubs in the bag. We gotta find things that are more useful than just off the tee, because that's the driver's job. So what I like to stress out about this is not a driving iron. This is a hybrid. And it's just a more compact style of hybrid.
And it's black.
And it's black. Black is slimming.
Okay.
Black is slimming.
So like
Ford said, you know, any color you want, as long as it's black.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, so what is it, like a 2, 3, and 4 only?
Yeah, so we're gonna
Yeah.
start it at 2 through 4, and the way that they're actually designed to be fit is they're designed to be fit as a hybrid. So they're gonna be parallel tip shafts, so we're gonna be able to put any of our hybrid graphite shafts in this club. We do have a couple of steel options in here as well. Again, just to add more adjustability into your bag for what game you're trying to play.
Well, there's a lot of parallel steel out there.
Oh, yes, there is.
Yeah.
Yes,
you know,
there
and I
is.
use, you know, with the stronger golfers, when I'm fitting hybrids, I'm often in steel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Between you and I, I'm playing the Project X utility shaft in this. It's 113 gram extra stiff. I play a DGX 100 now. For me to get something that's 15 grams lighter, but still have the weight, or sorry, have the flexibility that I'm looking for in a shaft, it's a game changer for me. I never thought I was going to be in a steel shaft on this. And
Yeah.
as I got into doing some fittings, here I am playing another steel shaft.
Yeah, you know, that's not really surprised me because I've been using steel in strong players hybrids forever.
Yeah,
You know, so there's two things that come into play. When you get a strong player, you need heavy, stiff carbon fiber. Well, you know, the price can really get up for that
Yes, it
stuff, right?
Yes, it can.
So you're talking about a $50 iron shaft versus a $200 hybrid shaft. So there's some real economy built into putting steel in a hybrid.
absolutely, absolutely. And for us, you know, one of the great things about that is we do offer in our hybrids a multitude of no upcharge shafts for you guys. So the fact that we are able to, if you are a steel guy, you can get that steel offering, but if you want to do a graphite offering as well, we have plenty of options here that are not going to change the price at all. Because like you were saying, shafts can get really expensive, especially when we're talking about graphite.
Yeah. And there's some crazy driver shafts out there these days. I don't even want to go there. Let's
another
look at the
case.
technology on this head.
Let's do it. You know, one of the cool things about this hybrid is I continually stress that it's a hybrid, but the way it's designed is a hybrid as well. So it's the same face material as our hybrid and fairway wood, which is an MAS 1C miraging steel.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the other things you notice about this, kind of like the HMB, we have a tungsten weight in there, deep in that sole, get that CG deep as possible to get that ball flight up as quick as we can. Because that's one thing we talked about with the driving iron. We're not getting the spin that we're looking for. And in golf, when we're hypothetically farther out than we want to be with an iron, we can take this club and get the same height that we're looking for in an iron. We're going to hold more greens. Because again, we're playing darts. It's not croquet out there. I don't want to see that ball roll all over the green.
Yeah.
When it hits, I want that ball to stay as close to that divot as possible.
The sole is not as deep.
Yeah, so you get a lot more.
So if I get in a rough with one of these, I get through the rough much easier with this style club than I can with a big wide.
Absolutely. So and especially, when we're out here in Texas where the ball loves to get swallowed by that rough, and that ground can get pretty hard. Anytime you get a wider sole, it doesn't like to cut through and you lose a lot of club head speed for that. Having something more narrow like this really gets us to cut through that turf a little bit better and really get a lot cleaner strike than what we would do for maybe a fairway wood or a hybrid going through that same rough.
Yeah, I got in a conversation with somebody a few days ago, and I remembered the hybrids that I played years and years and years ago, and I had them in the bag for a very, very long time. And they were very small hybrid heads.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I love those things, especially on fairways, you just did not get the turf drag.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
None at all. And that's something, as clubs have evolved over the years, hybrids have become something that are almost critical to anybody's bag. But there's still plenty of people who just can't look down at a hybrid and swing it like an iron, like you're supposed to.
Well, some of the hybrids I'm looking at these days don't look much different from the fairways.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
They don't. It's for some people that we talk about all the time, the mentality of golf and how mental it is, that can throw your swing off.
Mm-hmm.
So for somebody to come down and look back at something that more is shaped like an iron, but has the capabilities of a hybrid, is going to really give somebody more ability to attack a green.
Yeah. So the face here, we're looking at. Tell me more about the face.
Sure. It's an MAS 1C miraging steel. It's the fastest face material that we've used in our fairway woods and hybrids over the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's become a material that we've really found to be the best at creating ball speed. And bringing that face material into this hybrid, like I said, gives us the best of both worlds. So you're getting that same feel that you would off our CLK hybrid or SDX hybrid, but at the same time, you're getting that look and feel and performance of a longer iron / driving iron, but the spin and height of a hybrid.
So you have a large sweet spot in that?
We do, absolutely. Again, this is gonna be that club just really helping us get to the ability to land soft. I think that's really the key word here, landing softly. Just trying to make sure that we can get that dispersion off once it lands as tight as possible.
So let's move on to wedges.
Let's do it.
One of my favorite offerings from Mizuno.
We've had long
are
conversations
wedges.
over wedges over the years.
Yeah.
And you know, the T-Series wedge is something I'm always excited to see what we're doing from the T-Series. I'm a T fan. I know you're a T-Series fan.
I actually built a wedge fitting kit.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Yes, you did. Have you shown them that video? Or not the video, just what you created yet and from a wedge fitting system?
I have not.
Yeah, good video. I
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk a little bit about the T-Series wedges. First thing that you notice is that we have 3 finishes here. We're gonna have our raw finish, satin finish, and a denim copper finish, which you actually have right in front of you.
Yeah. Here's the copper finish. Love this thing.
It's beautiful.
Great look to it.
It's got that traditional shaping. Went back to more of a traditional look, traditional shape. You know, there's 2 different kind of wedge guys. You have a guy who likes that more teardrop shape and a guy who likes that more rounded shape. Us, we went back to that more traditional shape, just to give someone who's that traditional back to that old OG styling. But the biggest change in these wedges versus what we've done in the past is the copper underlay that's in the MP20s has finally been brought to the T22 series. So just to really soften that feel up even more.
So I'm not gonna get that in the raw wedge.
No, you know, that's raw wedges are raw. That's the whole beauty of them, is that they're raw.
So is this the copper underlay exposed?
That is not the copper underlay exposed. So basically this one here has a finish on it called a denim copper. What we did is we aged that copper. So anytime you put any kind of top coating on a club or ion plating, you guys have seen it in the T-Series wedge and the S-Series wedge, you start to wear out that finish. What's going to happen with this wedge is once you wear out that sole, you're going to actually expose that raw copper. Raw copper is very shiny. That's actually why we didn't make it pure copper.
I see.
But what that's going to happen is as that wedge oxidizes and as that exposed copper starts to change colors, it's just going to change right back into that color that's in your hand, that brushed denim. So it's pretty much a premature aging to make sure that it patinas more consistently and stays more of a consistent look.
So when I grind the back of this off, as I do very often, at least one wedge in your bag,
Yeah.
it's going to rust into the same color that we're already
Correct.
looking at.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. You know, that's anytime we get feedback on anything, everyone always calls, especially when I was in customer service, asking how do I make that finish last longer? And that's something that everyone talks to us about. So for us to be thinking more proactively on how to maintain that finish was a really great addition to this wedge line this year.
Now, these are coming in 1 degree increments?
They're gonna come in 1 degree increments. So we're gonna start at a 46 degree and we're gonna go all the way to a 62 degree. So that's gonna give us the ability to mix and match and combo whatever club head we're looking for. As clubs have gotten stronger over the years, there's a pitching wedge out there now, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a 38 degree pitching wedge out there nowadays, which is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
Considering, you know, most of ours sit at 46, 45, that's 2 club difference.
Yeah.
If we were to go traditionally at 50, 54, 58, we have a 2 club gap.
Right.
So now that we can go in the numeric increments, we can actually really dial in those scoring irons for what yardage you need versus what you normally always buy.
I didn't realize that pitching wedges has gotten down that
It's
low.
crazy, isn't
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, so you get, now I understand why you have a 46.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because you see some pitching wedges that are 40.
Yeah. You truly do. You know, especially nowadays too, I've seen more people go into a 4th or 9 in their custom options and then throwing a T-Series pitching wedge in here. But that really just kind of shows you why it's so important to talk to a fitter and to talk to an expert about what you're doing and your thought process of why, so they can guide you in the right direction to make sure that we're putting the right clubs in your bag to fill those gaps.
So let's talk about grinds a little bit. You've got a new grind in this here. Let's take a look at these. And I got to tell you a story about a guy that I work with.
Okay.
He's a pilot,
Uh-huh.
and I grind wedges severely. I call it my Texas grind, because here we have heavy sand.
Yes,
So
oh
it
yeah, we
won't
do.
go out of bunkers.
Mhm.
And if you get out in the morning and there's some dew, or maybe that sand is wet because it's been watering extensively last night, you just can't get a thick-soled traditional sand wedge into this stuff.
No.
So this pilot carries two wedges. He carries one with my Texas grind on it,
Mm-hmm.
and he carries another one with a more traditional sole on it. So when he's in Florida and he's playing someplace where they have soft, fluffy stuff, he has the appropriate wedge for it. So
Absolutely.
he has two wedges that he uses based upon what kind of sand he's playing in that day.
Yeah, people always been very infatuated by the bounce of the wedge, and that's something that people always talk about, my sand wedge needs to be a higher bounce for that reason. But you bring in a great example of why fitting is so important and why grinds of wedges are so important. Us playing in Texas, it's going to be really hard for me to take that S grind through some of these bunkers with it being as heavy a sand as we are.
Yes.
Hence why we brought in this X grind here that's really going to be a more narrow sole so we can really attack and cut through that sand or cut through that turf a little bit more.
Yeah, my favorite term, turf drag.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And a great example of this, one of my favorite courses that I've ever visited is Karsten Creek in Stillwater, Oklahoma, home of Oklahoma State's golf team. They have very, very thick zoysia grass as their rough, and that ball just loves to get swallowed. And when you're playing somewhere like that has that zoysia grass, you need to have as thin of a sole as possible to cut through that turf to really get that ball out of there with the spin that we need to hold a green.
Yeah.
But we don't know all of those things unless we talk to our fitters about what grinds work for me. How's my turf interaction going to be versus this grind versus a wider sole? What's that going to affect with me being in Florida versus me maybe in Minnesota?
Mhm.
So grinds is just another way for us to really enhance and refine what club is going to be the best for you.
Yeah, and as we look at these grinds, one of the things that we're seeing here is, this goes wide all the way across, but by the time we get over here, we're not only taking it off the back, we're taking it off the toe and the heel.
Absolutely. Taking a little bit more relief because again, trying to make what the turf is interacting with as minimal of a spot as possible. The more area that you have gliding over grass, you have the more ability to lose that club head speed going through it. So having a smaller sole right there really gives us the ability to maintain our speed and cut through it. So
And if you're gonna flop, and you want to take this thing and you want to lay it in like that and come in this direction, that's going to get in the way.
oh yeah, it will. Oh yeah, it will. And that's one of the reasons why, one, I love the fact that our wedges are forged. The fact that we have forged wedges gives us the ability to grind on these wedges and really make them to yourself. If you do have something, maybe hypothetically a C grind, and you want maybe a little bit more edge relief and heel relief, we can bring it to somebody like you who can just hit on the grind wheel 2 minutes and it's fixed. And we got to where we need to be. But you can't do that unless it's a forged wedge. And that's one of the things with us having the forged wedges, we're able to do that and do one of your favorite things, which is bend them.
Yeah.
We can mix and match and bend whatever lie and off we want them to be at.
Yeah, my own wedges are actually bent for distance.
Are they really?
Yeah, I go out, as I'm playing, when I was playing a lot, and I had a consistent swing, I would scope my distance to the flag, and when I got there, I'd look and say, am I 2 yards long or 2 yards short? So I'd go home that night and I'd bend the wedge a degree.
Yeah.
And, then go out and check it again until I knew exactly where that wedge was gonna go on a good swing.
Absolutely, and that actually kind of reminds me, when I'm fitting people for wedges now, it used to be back in the day, what degree and bounce you prefer. Your pitching wedge is at this number, here'd be your gapping. But now, my question I always ask is, how far do you want to hit your pitching wedge? How far do you want to hit your gap wedge on a full swing shot? So that we can actually start adding more clubs to the bag to make sure that we're getting distancing and gapping. I said it earlier, 100 yards and end is so important to the game.
Yeah.
That's where your strokes are gained and strokes are lost. So we need to know exactly how far these are going to fly. And if it's user error, it's user error. But I never want to have a situation when I hit a ball and I flush it, I go, that's not where I wanted it to go.
So if you're swinging your 7-iron, 90 some miles an hour, you must have a 4 or 5 wedge bag, right?
I have a 4 wedge bag right now currently.
Yeah,
I don't carry a 4-iron right now because there's just no need.
you don't need it.
I don't need
You
it.
already hit the ball far enough.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I don't carry
Yeah.
the 4-iron, but for someone like me who's a big hitter, it's really important for me to dial in my scoring irons.
Right?
They're dialed in, I just can't hit them. That's
Yeah,
the problem. I just don't practice enough.
Yeah,
But it just shows you there are certain people who maybe don't hit the ball as far, so we need to really focus on the longer part of their bag, and then we have options for them. But now that we have the more grind options in the wedges, bringing in the gap wedges in the 223 and 225, it gives us the ability to really hone in on what you need for your set and to make that set just for you.
yeah,
Not for everybody, but for you.
yeah. You know, that's all, you know, that's great stuff. What people don't understand is, you know, there's some big brand wedges out there that I have to deal with that branding thing, and I say, oh, wait a minute, these are forged. Have you ever felt the difference between a forged wedge and a wedge you're playing?
Oh, yeah.
And I just let them hit their wedge, and then I have them hit one of these, and we go back and forth, and they go, really?
If you ever want to know if your wedge is forged, there's a simple thing you can do. Look on your wedge and see if it says forged.
Yeah,
If it doesn't say it's forged, it's not forged.
yeah,
And trust me, it's one of those things, if it was forged, they would be telling you from the mountaintops that it was forged.
yeah.
That's one of the reasons why all of our clubs, when they're forged, say it on the club.
Mhm.
It's such an important thing because everybody knows in golf, forging is more consistent. It's a more consistent practice, and we're able to get those clubs to perform more consistently than a cast. Cast has gotten much better. We've definitely used cast over our days and some other irons, but we do believe if touch, feel, consistency, and being precise is the most important part of a wedge, you gotta go with a forged wedge.
Right, yeah. And it's not, you know, this is a solid piece of metal. You can't take and fake forging by welding in forged face. I mean, it is what it is. Either
Absolutely.
the entire thing is forged or it's not.
Agreed. And these are forged the same exact way as our irons are. There's one difference in this mild carbon steel than what we put in the 221s or the scoring irons in the Mizuno Pros, and it's that we add a little bit of boron to it. Adding that boron just firms up that metal a little bit more and adds the durability
It
to the
doesn't wear as
grooves.
fast.
Correct.
Yeah,
Because that is one of the things that we've always been, one of the big trade-offs with forges, they do wear out a little quicker because it's a softer metal, but adding that boron's actually increased the durability of the grooves by 30%.
yeah, and I'm seeing it. I mean, when I'm working with the younger players, high school players, you know, the beginning college players, they just wear out their wedges.
Oh yeah.
They wear them out at least once a year.
Especially if they hit it hard.
Oh, yeah.
Those hard hitters, they really wear those
You know,
grooves
and
out
they
quickly.
forget to clean their balls when they're practicing. And so, you know, first thing you have to do is teach them to clean balls. And then the second thing is to let them know what a worn face looks like when you crack the top of the grooves. It's over with.
Yep, it's
You're not going to get any more spin.
No.
So that set becomes their practice wedges, and they get a perfect match that goes in their bag. That's their gamers.
Yeah.
So you know, until they wear out their gamers, they're practicing with their practice wedge.
Absolutely. And I definitely recommend that to a lot of people if you do have that ability. If you have an older wedge that's similar, that doesn't have, maybe the grooves
I mean,
aren't
these
as
kids
sharp.
that are wearing them out once a year, it's not similar. It's exactly the same.
No, it's exactly the same. But those are the kind of guys, if you're playing that way, you're playing competitively. And those guys, having something consistent is so important. But even for the everyday golfer, if you have a wedge that's maybe a 5610 that's older, different brand, that's newer, and you have a newer one in your bag, keep that older one around just so you can keep practicing with it.
Mhm.
Just so you can kind of know what, maybe it's not going to spin as well, but you're going to know the distance to take it back
Mhm.
to where you're going to be. So I tell people all the time, if you can find ways to keep your grooves keep them longer, a longer shelf life, I guess would be the right word for it,
Mhm.
try to use a practice wedge. I personally do it.
So, for those of you that are watching this, I'm Russ from Fit2Score. I'm here with Rich Meracle from Mizuno. I work at the Highlands Performance Golf Center in Carrollton. I am one of the fitters there. There are other very competent fitters there.
I see that out there once in a while.
that have complete access to the full Mizuno fitting cart.
Absolutely.
So, we invite you to come and see me or see one of the other fitters at the Highlands Performance Golf Center and get fit for a Mizuno product. And if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and give me a comment, because YouTube looks at those things to rank videos, which will bring other people to this video. So, thanks for spending your time with us today.